Hello, everybody. It looks like Christina is on from, would that be Broward County?
Yes, we are here from Broward. There's 3 of us.
Fantastic. Who is with you?
It's myself, it's Christine Lamb, and Christy Bradford.
Okay, great.
Basically, everybody with similar names.
I know.
That's how we roll.
Just to keep it simple.
You all do that to us. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is start out with our introduction. So this is Paula Kohler, and I think I've met most of you before, at least virtually, and I'm the director for the center. And with me are our new staff that some of you may know, I'm sure, and then others may be new to you. And that's Drew Andrews, who has joined us. He was recently the special ed director in Bradford County, and before that, a transition specialist in Duval County. And Drew is joining us from the state special ed directors meeting. So we've had him mute his microphone so we can't hear everybody in the background. And then Caitlin Bucati is also with us. Drew is going to be our technical assistance coordinator. So he is going to be doing a lot of outreach with you all, hopefully coordinating the application process, the recertification process, and those functions of the center. And then Caitlin is joining us. Graduated with her PhD from UCF last year, but has now spent a year at Cornell working with really providing a variety of support for transition throughout the state of New York, but also working with us at our National Technical Assistance Center on transition. And Caitlin is going to be working real closely with everyone regarding their annual reports, their data systems, and those kinds of things, so that we can gather the information that the legislation requires and that we need to put into our annual report. So she's going to join us in those functions. And then it looks like, who else is here other than the Bradford County group? Or I'm sorry, Broward County Public Schools. So John? I don't know if John can hear us. Okay, so John Rouge is here on, I see, signed in, but I don't see either a microphone or a camera for him. So you should be able to
probably catch up in a moment.
Yeah, we should be able to talk either via phone or the computer. And then it looks like
use that table to sit this laptop on for this conference call.
Don't know if anybody else is here. Okay, so somebody else is calling in from 305. I don't know who that is.
Hi, it's John from Florida Keys Community College.
Oh, fantastic. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. We heard Carla got a new job.
She did. We're sort of grasping for her. We're still having her help us out as much as possible, but yeah, she's doing some other stuff.
Okay, well, way to go. I always like to see people expanding, because then they bring that disability perspective with them and create opportunities on kind of a wider level. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Welcome, John. We're happy that you're here. And I think those are the 2 institutions that we have. So Florida Keys, and then Broward County Public Schools, and others may join us. And of course, we're going to repeat this tomorrow, so that I know I heard from some people that said they would be on Thursday's webinar. We just wanted to make sure we could catch everyone. And we are going to record this so that if you want to share it with your financial aid people or whoever else at your institution that might need the information, then we can send you that file, and there's no problem with doing that. That's why we're recording. So, you know, whatever questions you have, then hopefully they'll be for the good of everybody else that wants this information. So basically, we're just doing this for our Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Programs that are already approved, and just so that you understand, and we can make the scholarship award process a little bit maybe more seamless than it was last year. I think it actually worked well, but as financial aid offices start to get involved with it, it sometimes gets a little bit, it may be different than what they're typically used to working with. So that's where we run into a couple of snags. So anyway, I'm just gonna remind people of student eligibility, and because I know in some cases the programs like Florida Keys works with your school district, and you actually work with students who are still enrolled in the K-12 system, either under dual enrollment kinds of things or other arrangements. So you want to make sure that everyone knows who is eligible for a scholarship. And then I sent the revised workbook, Excel workbook / spreadsheets out to everyone earlier or at the end of last week. And so I want to make sure that people understand how to use that. It's expanded from last year, so we can hopefully meet everybody's needs. And then we're just going to run through the process real quick about how we get the requests from you, and then some of the and then how we process that. We want everybody to understand the reporting process. So I did receive the Florida Keys. Carla did do that last week. And so I have everything from her for y'all for last year. So that's great. There are a couple of other programs that haven't reported yet. So, so they're delinquent, which makes us kind of scramble for things that we're required to do in the legislation. And then we'll talk about undisbursed funds. So it's good. I'm glad you all are both here, both Broward County and Florida Keys, because Carla probably handled a lot of this for you, John. And then in terms of Broward County, you all are brand new, so this will be a new process for you. So we'll try to keep it as simple as possible is our motto. But just remember that these scholarships are for students who have already left the K-12 system. They don't have to be between the ages of 18 and 26. We have some programs serving students that are older than that. They do need to attend your school physically, so these scholarships aren't for some sort of virtual programs. And of course, we could just want to keep reminding everybody, but that it's the institution's responsibility to determine eligibility. We don't collect documentation about your students to determine whether or not they're eligible. So basically, when you request the scholarships from us, which we're going to go through that process, then you're attesting to the fact or assuring us that you know and you verified the student's eligibility for this. So again, they have to be enrolled in your program. Now, I don't think this is an issue at either one of your schools, but a couple of the other schools, and in Christie, this maybe could have been relevant to y'all, but because I know you work through adult ed, so some of your students come in through adult ed or did, and that's the case in a couple of other programs. And so they are now thinking about, okay, we have all these students in adult ed, and they have many of them have intellectual disabilities, and they're doing something with us, so can they get a scholarship? Well, it really comes down to, you have an approved Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program. And if the students are enrolled in that program and are a person with an intellectual disability and are attending that program there on site, then they're eligible. So, so they have to be in your program, not just attending, the school or the college or whatever. And then they, to maintain their scholarship, of course, they have to demonstrate satisfactory academic progress. And that again, we'll be working with you. Each institution and each program defines what SAP is for you. And then that's what you measure students against. Are they maintaining SAP as you've defined it? And the legislation gives our center the sort of responsibility to add to that. But in our discussions with people at the Department of Ed and the Senate staffers, we're coming from an approach of we'd like for you to follow a process, not necessarily we don't determine what your standard is. And part of that is because all these programs are so very different, it would be hard to define that. So we'll be providing some guidance really within the next 6 to 8 weeks on what process we expect people to apply as you look at whether or not students are making SAP. And it really is just to make sure that when you notice a student is struggling, that either academically or socially or with some of those transition things that you're working on, that you're able to bring your support team together, look at what the students need, determine whether or not it's even a good match in the particular program that they're seeking their credential, and then figuring out what additional support to provide. So it's really a process rather than they have to achieve a certain percentage of their goals, so to speak. So more to come on that. But this is who's eligible for the scholarships. So I sent out the big scholarship request workbook, and it's got 2 worksheets in it. So the first worksheet, and I'm going to move this over in just a second and put it on this but basically what we're trying to do is to take your institution's estimates of what it costs typically to attend the institution, and then look at what rate your students are attending. So with so I think with Florida, Florida Keys, you all might be different because you have lots of different kinds of programs that you're working with. With Broward, you have a defined program right now. And so your students are pretty much attending your program as it's defined. And I think it's kind of full time, so to speak. Right. And when you go to look at UCF, so those students are auditing classes and then doing other things. So at UCF, you would clearly have to be engaged in 6 hours because full-time is considered 12 hours. So with them, they would be looking at a half-time rate when you're thinking about the typical cost of attending. But since every institution is different, you just have to figure out what's posted on your school's website, the kind of information you provide anybody that's coming, and then figure out what rate your students are attending. And then this is the chance for you to add in any unique costs associated with your program. It might be student mentoring cost, it might be a job placement cost, it might be transportation cost, the kinds of things that you're doing for your students that the institution wouldn't typically do, wouldn't be included in tuition or your tech fees or some of your standard student fees. So we want you to estimate those, and really to me this is real important for y'all, because then you have to figure out how are we going to recover these costs. And we'll be doing some other webinars on strategies for that, but the first thing you have to do is figure out what they are. And then we ask you to, as you use the spreadsheet, generate the sort of typical cost by semester, by residency type, and then generate then what we could call an estimated cost by semester. And I know you, John, have a student that's traveling from Panama City to attend your program. So the next thing you know, somebody may be coming from Georgia or Alabama or whatever. So that's why we ask for you to look at residency type if that's relevant to your program. At UCF, they have a student attending from Utah. So that student's, assessed out of state or non-residency tuition rates. So I'm going to put this spreadsheet over here so we can show it. And we've built formulas into this and hopefully made this somewhat consumable. The spreadsheet that we used last year, we didn't calculate every single cost by semester, but we ran into situations in different programs. At FAU, their students are required to go 3 semesters in order to earn enough credits to be considered half-time. And then in the Florida Keys program, we had some students who didn't start their programs until winter semester or spring, whatever we call it down here. And then others that came fall, but then finished up in fall. So, so to try and not have to do spreadsheets for every single program like I kind of did last year, then we've tried to make sure that we have enough information in this one spreadsheet that would allow you to enter the information relevant to you. And we've provided a couple of examples there. So again, looking at what your institutional's basic costs are, at what rate your students are participating, and it may be that they're in a tech program or an industry certification program, and this is the cost of that program, and they're attending at 100%. So that's how you would use that. And then you come up with kind of a typical cost for each semester. There are, like I said, formulas that are already entered into that. And so we go through, this made the spreadsheet a bit longer when we added all the semesters, but it just works through each of those semesters. And then down in this part of the spreadsheet is where you're adding in any of those other special costs that, that you all have. And part of what we've heard from programs when they either figure out, do we want to start one of these programs, or where do we go from here? How do we take on more students? We need more staff, et cetera, et cetera. Then this is where, again, you can figure out what those costs are per student, per semester, and start then adding fees to tuition or some way of cost recovery so that those can get covered. Or maybe we figure, one of the examples is that vocational rehabilitation pays for tuition for students, for example, in the Florida Panhandle Technical College program. So if their students brought in then the scholarships, you could use, the students would have the funds available to help you recover those specific program costs that you would charge for fees or program services or something like that. So, so basically this information, you're going to look at that by semester. It's going to go up here in your spreadsheet. So then we end up with a total estimated cost per student per semester. Right now, we don't award the scholarship based on what it costs, but in the future we may have to. And so one of our responsibilities at the center is to, well, we have to do lots of reports to Tallahassee, as you can imagine, but one of those is to think about, do we need to increase the scholarship amount at some point? I've already talked with them about how programs can recover these extra costs, because there are certain rumors about you can't charge differential tuition, or you can't just keep adding student fees and all these kinds of things. So we want to make sure that there are ways that we've worked through with the department and the Board of Governors that allow you to recover those costs. So that's why we need this information, and it's real important for us to compile that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides, and the next second spreadsheet in that is then listing your student information. So there's just a couple of reminders again, is that you need to make sure that the students for whom you're requesting scholarships, they are eligible and you have that documentation. You don't need to send it to us, but in case you were audited, you would clearly need to have that. We had a situation last year where one of the institutions requested scholarships for all their students. And as it turned out, one of their students and his parents didn't want the scholarship. They thought it was going to affect their income level that the student was allowed to reach. So, so they wanted to give it back. And then, of course, the university had a big trouble figuring out, well, how do we take a scholarship back? We don't do that. So, so just make sure, I guess, that your students actually want the scholarship. The other piece of information that we need is the school ID. So there were a couple of times where we got the spreadsheet with the names, but without the information with the school ID, and we need that so that when we communicate with your financial aid office, we're sure that the award is going to the correct student for whom you requested it. So it's not too much complicated information on this spreadsheet. And then what semesters you expect in which they'll enroll. And so this is where I worked sort of one-on-one with Carla last year, because your students, one started in spring and went in summer, another student was in fall but then was finishing, another student went fall, spring. So you literally, we hope, have the ability to enter that information for each student in the spreadsheet. And then the other sort of bottom line to remember is that all the scholarships for next year will be $7,000 annually. So if they go one semester, then they'll get half of that. And if they go, complete the program, an annual award will be $7,000. So again, this is where you enter your student's name. We have to have their school ID. You determine whether or not they're a resident or a non-resident, which semesters you expect in which they'll enroll. This sums it up right there, as we have formulas in most of this stuff as to how many semesters that'll be. That's data that we used previously to calculate what their cost would be, but right now we just like to know how many semesters students are attending, and that'll be tied into our sort of reporting that we're required to do to the state, since we are now calculating costs based on each semester. So this information, again, you fill in from your estimated cost spreadsheet. We're happy to put a formula here, but again, we didn't want to confuse things for folks, so that's just basically entered there. So we have in the instructions that we sent that shows everything that's green, you all enter. And so all of these cells that are green, you would enter. So the things that are white, such as the projected number of semesters and then the total cost estimate for students, those are calculations. So there'll be formulas already within the spreadsheet there that will be calculated. And then the pink information is what our center will fill in. So we'll get the spreadsheet from you all and verify it, and then we'll enter the amount awarded for each semester. And what we will do at the beginning of the year is that I will, you'll have requested the scholarships for your students for the year based on what you know now. You can always come back and ask for scholarships for additional students if you admit additional students into your program at a later date. For example, they're not starting until the spring semester. But what we do is when we award the scholarship, we're going to award the amount for the whole year based on what you've requested here. And but we'll give instructions that it be distributed to the students by semester. And so in these columns under scholarship awarded amount for fall, spring, and summer, we'll actually enter that amount. So the way we did it with FAU, for example, last year was their students received $2,800 for the fall semester, $2,800 for spring, and then $1,400 for the summer. So that adds up to the annual scholarship of $7,000, but so that it's aligned with their semesters in which they're attending, then we award it that way. And we would expect that the institution disperses it that way. And again, that sort of helps you in case a student decides they don't want to come back in spring or summer, then you've not awarded that money that you have to go chase down. So, so that's how we'll enter here how it's been dispersed now, or how it should be dispersed. Now, again, it's, you know, let us know if there's questions about this. All you have to do is call. So I worked, you know, real closely with Carla last year. We worked real closely with Mary at FAU. So whatever works to fit into your institution's schedule, then that's how we'll work it out on here. And then ultimately, you're also going to be providing this blue information, because you'll have to let us know at certain points in time that I'll go over in just a minute, how much you did actually disperse to students, and provide that information back to us at the end of each term, or near the end of each term. So again, the instructions will tell you, you know, fill in green, white gets calculated, pink gets added by the center, and then blue is comes with your reports. So hopefully, again, that's a pretty straightforward spreadsheet that can maybe meet the needs of most all your programs. And again, there are just some notes down here that tell you where the data may come from, or how it's to be used. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way for the minute. And so again, the annual scholarships for this year, which are specified in the appropriations bill, will be $7,000. Okay, so if you can submit the spreadsheet to us by July 1, then we will turn it around and get it back to you ASAP through the UCF. And if you can't get it, I mean, some of you are just building your programs, Broward, for example, so you don't even know who those students are going to be at this point, or maybe you do. So we will process it when we get it. But what happened last year, well, of course, we were just starting up, but you know, the students are getting tuition bills from your institution, and they've not yet received their scholarship disbursement. So there were lots of requests to change the deadline, you know, to keep students from getting dropped from their schedule. So we did have a situation actually at UCF in the spring. So we didn't get the scholarship request for that student until mid-February, and you know, by the time it got processed here, the registrar's office or enrollment had dropped the student. Then you have the issue, well, you can't award a scholarship to a student who's not enrolled. So what we did was we sort of worked real closely with our financial aid office to figure out what would be a good requesting schedule, what would be a good sort of processing schedule that we get the funds to your institution, so that you all can award the scholarships as close to the semester start as possible, so that you don't have to deal with all those all the issues that come with non-payment of the invoices for the students. So we'll get in your spreadsheet, and then we look through it again, just making sure all the information is there that we need. And then we actually develop an invoice for payment to come out of our center scholarship account. And I take the information that's on your spreadsheet and condense it down to the student, to the student ID number, and then how much should be awarded each semester. And I pass that on to our College of Education and Human Performance budget office. They sign off on it and then send it on to UCF's Finance and Accounting. And then our Finance and Accounting will electronically send the total award amount with this short form saying this is who it goes to, this is their ID, this is how much they get each semester, to your financial aid office. And honestly, this year, this all happened in less than a week. So we had an interesting situation where we had one of the state colleges that had a newly approved program send in their scholarship request. I processed it, sent it on, gave them back the information of who was getting what. And they called me or sent me an email like the next day and said, well, don't send these yet because we got to figure out how to do them. And I called our finance and accounting. They had already sent it that morning. So so I think that I've been real happy with how finance and accounting has been responsive to this and getting those funds out. So and again, that's why we want to try to do this up front and ahead so that the systems are in place in your institutions for processing this. And I know at Keys, Carla worked real closely with your financial aid office to make sure that everything went smoothly. One of the things you got, I believe, Christy and others at Broward, let me know if you didn't get it, but you should have gotten a W-9 or something like that from UCF, and your financial aid people or whomever at your institution need to send that back to our finance and accounting because it gives us the account number to which we're going to be distributing the funds. And you can do that at any time, even if you aren't ready to request your scholarships.
Okay.
If we get that set up, then it's good to go when our people will go look into the system and you're there.
Okay. We're trying to find out if we've gotten that yet. I don't know that we've seen it.
We're checking Paula with our accountant right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paula, let me ask you really quick. We're just establishing, like you said, can we guesstimate on the scholarship form, or is it better if we submit later because we're not taking kids until January? Is it better if we submit later in order to have a more accurate?
I think that would be the best approach because
okay, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to submit in July and have it so.
No. If you submitted this in October, and then you have your firm enrollments, or whenever you feel confident that you have your enrollments firm,
gotcha.
Then we'll turn it around and
okay.
It's just having, when it comes into us, making sure that I'm like in the state, or people are in the office, or we don't have something going on.
Right.
But
okay.
when I get it out of here, it seems to be flowing pretty well.
Okay, perfect.
Although this week, everybody's closing out their fiscal year. I'm not sure how quickly it would flow this week. I think y'all have the same issue. Okay, so then your institution is going to disperse according to the schedule on that short form, so to speak. So it's by semester. The annual amount will be $7,000, and then we'll divide that across what your students are attending. The issues that we ran into last year were the institutions thinking that they were only going to give out the amount that the students had incurred at the institution. So UCF, for example, if the student wasn't living on campus or didn't get a meal plan, their tuition didn't come up to the whole $3,500 for fall semester. So they said, well, the students are only entitled to this much, Well, no, the students are entitled to the whole scholarship. The legislation says the scholarship shall be annually $7,000. So we recognize, I think in the case of the Keys, this might have also been a little confusing for the financial aid there, because when I got the disbursement report, they hadn't dispersed it all to the students, and then we had to go back and say, nope, you need to give the students the rest of the money. So there are, some of them are may not have a meal plan, but they're still eating on campus, or they're paying for transportation, or they're having to buy equipment. I know one of the students at the Keys needed to buy a laptop. So, so there are lots of costs that they don't necessarily incur directly from the institution. So it's a flat scholarship award amount. And the only thing that we ask is that we award it by semester, not all $7,000 at one time.
Paula?
Yes.
It's Christine. Hi, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
We're just wondering, is it possible that you could share the different fees that people use? Because we'd love to look at what the menu is out there as we're developing this.
Yeah, we'll go back. Well, as soon as we get these, we'll look at that. So I'm trying to think what people had for last year. I'll have to go in and pull them up, but we can give you an idea of what those were.
That would be great, just because the laptops didn't occur to us, and that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing that we want to do, because I made a list, I can hold it up in front of my camera.
Okay.
List. I was working on this morning. This is a list of all the webinars that I think we need to do. And that one that you just mentioned was first on the list.
Okay.
So we'll probably do a specific separate one on that, because that's a good question. Everybody has that same question.
And then Paula, I'm just going to ask one more. It's Christy again. I just checked with our accountant, Lizette. We did not get the W-9. Did it come to me, or did it go to Broward Schools Financial? Do you know?
No, it would have come to you. So I'll turn around and send it as soon as we get off.
Thank you so much. Can I ask one more question? I'm on a roll, Paula.
Oh yeah.
When will you have information about the September PD that we're coming to, just so we can start making the plans here?
Oh, I was going to give you that in the last slide. It gives you the date, and we're getting ready to send that out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, great, good questions, and I don't mind. Stop me if you need to. And then I'll do my clock here and make sure I'm going to give you time to ask questions. Okay, next. So then we have the scholarship reporting. Now I worked on this document again today, because last year we had a, come on, document, move over. Last year we had two kind of we had the reporting timeline, and then we had our scholarship disbursement and reporting timeline. And so those are now all on this one document. This is a revised from the one I sent out last week. I apologize for that. I hate when people send multiple versions, but I think this is it. But this sort of works through all those, it integrates the information for your annual report about your program, and it integrates the information about the scholarship reporting. And those are two different things. Now, those of you, which most of your institutions have, requested a grant, will have reporting timelines for that too, but basically it's the same date as your annual report. So I'll get that information will be in your grant award agreement, which I'll talk about in a minute. So July 1, submit the cost estimate and request worksheets to us. Here's the form that I'm talking about, Christy, that I'll send to you guys afterwards. It's form 41990, and that gives us the cost information or the account information. And once you do this, you don't have to do it again. It's just a one-time thing. Then during that period of July, we will add the scholarship amount awarded to each student, like I just demonstrated, and then create a short form, only because accounting and financial aid don't need all that information that we're getting from you. So we'll cut it down just so they have the student ID, and then the amount per semester. So we'll work on that during July, and then get all of that information going through UCF, so that by the end of the month, then UCF gets that information, or gets the money transferred to y'all. So when I will take that full spreadsheet and fill in, like I said, by semester, who's going to be awarded what. We'll send back that complete spreadsheet to you. So you'll now have a spreadsheet that you've submitted with information, we've added information to, and then you're going to keep that and use that for reporting your disbursement. So we're going to use the same spreadsheet as we go through the year, and we'll be adding information to it as we go along. So as we're working on the scholarship stuff, then you all are going to be submitting and preparing an annual report to us. Now, Broward, you don't have that this year because you just got approved and you're just starting this fiscal year. Florida Keys, you do have an annual report that will be due August 1st. And I think we had definitely communicated this information in the past. So this is, and over here on the right column is all the information that needs to be in that. Caitlin and our staff were working to come up with a user-friendly way for you to submit this information to us. So, and a user-friendly, secure way for you to introduce this information to us. So, you know, we don't have that finalized yet. We're just making sure that we have a good system in place. Again, that's somewhat easy for you to use, efficient for you to use, provides the information we need for our annual reports, and then you know, and then it's secure because it does have a lot of information in there. Okay, projections for next year enrollment. So that's that's one of the things the legislature requires of us. So can we kind of figure out who do you see, how many students do you see that are going to be in your sort of catchment area as you think down the road? And so how many students are going to be looking for these kinds of programs in your area? But anyway, that's all the information here that is required in the annual report. And this year, you know, hopefully we will get you a template out soon that you can use to do this. In the future, I'm sure we'll be gathering this information either through an online system or a database system or something like that that's going to make it easy for you all to input and then easy for us to generate output from. So then what Finance and Accounting has told us, they'll turn around those disbursements in about 2 weeks. So we get that to them, and then they'll get it out to you. And again, when they send it to your financial aid office, it'll have that list of students and the amount per semester to award to those students. Okay, so then we hope at the beginning of each term, rather than like halfway through the term, your financial aid offices can then distribute the scholarship information or the scholarships to the students. And they need to be sure and just disperse everything that we've awarded is the sort of caveat there. October 1st, we submit our annual report to everybody in Tallahassee, it seems. And this is all specified in the legislation. So they specify who we send it to, when we send it to, and then much of the information that needs to go into that. So that really gives us 2 months to take the data from all of your programs and compile them and put them into our report. So that's why that August 1 date for your report is going to be real crucial to us, because we'll only have 8 weeks to pretty much pull our report together. And our report is going to really drive whether or not this thing continues to be funded, both the center, the scholarships, and the grants. So they're really high priority for us. And so we'll work real closely with you all as you're preparing those reports. It's not just something we're going to send something out to you, then you guess how to do it. It's whatever you need from us to help you do that. Well, that's what we're here for. We also required in the legislation to submit any legislative and budget recommendations that we might have from the center, which is really cool. So it's sort of working up with, I'm getting all these weather notices on my phone. I'm gonna turn that off. Sorry about that. So we worked real closely this past year with the Senate Appropriations Committee to look at how we might use the scholarships and the grant money in case demand for one exceeded the demand for the other. Gave us a little flexibility with that. Our understanding is that they did increase our budget in terms of what we can award for grants next year and scholarships. Haven't seen the final budget bill yet, but that was exciting. So we do hope to continue to collect your input and then pass that on as we meet with them so that they really get a sense of what we're doing and how well we're doing it and what the needs are. So it's fun to be able to have these open ears at the other end of the line. Then at December 1, you all need to send to us that first report on what you dispersed to students and the scholarship. So you're going to use that same spreadsheet, and it's going to be right here in this column. Oops. In this blue column. So you'll just enter in there, you know, $3,500 for every student, basically, or some other amount depending on how it was awarded. And then you'll send that, I would save it as a different name as your fall report, and then send that to us electronically, and we'll collect that information. So we're trying to, again, make this somewhat easy to do. But the legislation does require it for us to gather that information within the academic terms. Okay, then you're going to do the same thing April 15th, and it'll be the same spreadsheet, and you're just going to add that second column and third column, and hoping that you're able to go ahead and disperse the summer amounts by that time if your students are going into the summer. And the reason for that is you've got to return, if we have a real big problem that you can't disperse by your summer awards, if you have those, I know Florida Keys had some last year, then contact us and we'll look at what date we can get that information from you. Because it's all going to flow into determining if anything, the bottom line is if anything has to be returned from your institution to UCF, and that would just be funds that will not, it's the awards that were not given to students. So, and the legislation says that has to be returned by June 1 of each year. So if for some reason your summer disbursements don't happen by April 15th, let us know, and we'll have to figure out what date you can give us that information. This year, I think all but one institution was late with this. And, you know, when people start looking at our performance and what we're required by the legislation, we need to then move this up so that everybody can be on time next year, so that we are not in violation of the law. Okay, so we said that April 15th date is what we thought was reasonable. And then again, June 1 is that date to return funds not dispersed. So that could be done by ACF, like electronic funds transfer, whatever they call it, back to UCF to the account from which it originated. And then again, as we say here, and I'll send this reporting thing out to you as soon as we get off. If it's not received by July 1, then we're going to still process your scholarship request as soon as we get it. It's just that I'm not, you know, we'll process it as soon as we get it and get it into the university, and just hoping that there won't be delays and, you know, your students getting all those overdue notices from your school. Okay, let me get that out of the way. Okay, that's the reporting. We just went through all of that. One thing to remember is you don't have to track students' expenditures. We had some confusion from some of the auditors at some of the institutions last year. Basically, you track your disbursements. You don't have to track what students spent the money on unless you all want to do that. That's not information that you need to provide us. One of the schools thought that they had to give the students all the money, and then everything that the students didn't spend, they had to collect back and send back to UCF, and that's not required. So the situation may be, again, the student turned down the scholarship, or the student, you projected they would be enrolled in spring or summer, and they weren't. And so since they weren't enrolled, you didn't give them a scholarship. Pretty simple. Okay, good. Now we're at questions. If you have more.
I just wanted to confirm for students that we are anticipating are going to start in spring, but we're not positive yet, don't include them right now. Just hold off and wait until we get confirmation
That they're accepted.
Yeah.
Yep, you can do that. And so there are a couple of ways you could do that. So if they're not going to be there for fall, then they're coming for spring, and you've already worked that out. So what happened, I think last year, was you would, yeah, no, that's right. So basically just use the same spreadsheet, and it says somewhere on here, I think in the instructions, and then add those students to it, and then send it again later in the fall. And basically we'll have already sent it back to you, and we'll already see who's been awarded. But then when you turn around and send it, as request number 2 or something like that, then we'll just process that one student here and get that money sent down to the institution.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I think we had to do that with a couple of programs last year. They had students that joined the program in spring. So that's not a problem.
Okay.
So here's the event that Broward folks were asking about. So we are having our first annual Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program Institute. We're going to be at the Hilton in Altamont Springs. It's right off I-4. You'll have a joyride on I-4 to get there. And we'll start on September 27th, so kind of mid-afternoon, and then we'll go all day Thursday. It's Thursday, Friday, I think. And then Friday, but we'll finish up by 4 o'clock or so that folks can either start that drive back home or catch planes or things like that. So this is going to be a team event, so you'll come as a team, and it'll be for the programs that are already approved, and as well as programs who are starting, or institutions that are thinking about planning programs. And we are going to pay the cost, the travel cost, for 50% of your team members. So we want to encourage you to bring in the people from your institution that you need to bring in, and then adding either local VR people, vocational rehabilitation, or local K-12 folks, or local career tech folks, whomever you think, or parent or student, maybe one of your students. So we want you to have a team that can look at what you're doing in your program, think about looking at your data that you're collecting, figuring out what are we doing well, what's not working, and then generating your plans for the rest of the year. Broward, y'all's might be focused a lot on, what do we got in place at this point, and what do we need to get in place, and what are we going to do as we roll this thing out in January. The same thing with you at the Keys will be, you have data from last year, so you'll be starting a new academic year and bringing in information from the past year as well, and then thinking about what's working, what's not working, what do we need to do. We'll have a whole planning process that you use, and hopefully facilitate then thinking about the evaluation data that you're collecting around your program. And but just so that people, this first year, we want to make sure that you have the team that you need. So we'll pay for 50% of your people to attend. That doesn't count your grant money. I mean, you can use your grant money for others. That's fine, but we'll pay out of our operating budget this first year just for some of your team members. So, and there's no registration fee. We will have a registration system, and then work with you on that. And we have rooms will be held at the Hilton, and they're $99 a person. So we think that's a pretty reasonable rate. and their spaces looks really great. We were over there on Monday. We're relaunching our website this week, so you'll actually be able to go and find these kinds of documents that I shared today, the reporting schedule, the instructions for requesting the scholarships and the spreadsheets, as well as the application, grant applications, those things. So all of that information. And then hopefully you'll be able to find slides there from presentations like this. So we've been working real hard on that, and I'm trying to get that launched this week. So we hope that plays out. If not, it'll be early next week, but it's coming soon. The grant agreements, whoa, I have been around and around with our legal here. We finally have an approved grant agreement template with the attorneys here. Our folks are now basically taking your grant proposals, and they become Appendix A in this agreement, and sort of lay out exactly what you've proposed to do and what we've approved. Your budget will be part of this. Your budget justification will be part of this. Your annual reporting will be part of this, the elements on which you'll need to report. And then, and it's not really duplicative of your annual report, so hopefully you'll see we're not going to create a reporting burden for you, we hope. We try to avoid that. But so the template's been approved here, of course, with the eye of it going out to districts and institutions in Florida. So hopefully your legal teams won't have too many issues with the terms. I think they're pretty straightforward. So look for those, and I will, when our people send them out here, you will be copied on it. So you will be in the loop. So whoever's listed as the program person, and then of course your grants administrative person that were entered on your this thing that you all filled out, your grant proposal cover sheet. So we're using that as the contact information for whom we should submit this stuff. So that'll be coming. I'm sure they should be getting these out by next week. And then just as quickly as you turn them around, then you're good to go. The university will sign off on them then. If there are changes, then we have to send it back to our legal. But I think I've lit a fire under them. We'll see. But I don't think there'll be too much trouble. If you have pictures of your students that you can send to us and you have permission from them to do so, that would be great. For example, we're working on a brochure that we'll be giving out at Family Cafe this week. And we always want to include student pictures in that. So we're always going to create materials for the center, and real important to have pictures for that. And I got pictures from the UCF program, and we don't want the UCF program to be the only one in there. So there's diversity of the programs is so fantastic across the state. We want to make sure that we capture that in our materials. So those are some FYIs. Other questions? Other needs? Tell us what you need. I got that long list of webinars started.
I'm excited to see, or not excited to see, but I think it'll be nice to have the annual report template, especially being so new to it. I'm not sure what the best format will be, so that'll definitely be helpful.
Okay, good.
With the grant agreement, so that's not for the scholarships, right? That's for the grant.
Yep, that's for the grant. So y'all submitted a grant, and part of it is to do some things there on your main campus, but then start the program in the Upper Keys.
Right.
Yep. So that's a different, and so both of the grants that are going out to y'all are a total of $300,000. I think yours is you all spread over 3 years, maybe $100,000, around $100,000 each year, or closely there. And I think Broward y'all's was for 2 years, right? It's just off the top of my head.
Yes.
We were 2 years, Paula.
Yeah, 2 years. Okay. So, so most of them people requested it for 3 years, but there were 2 or 3 that requested it for 2 years. So that'll be reflected in your agreement. So it's basically a contract that says you're getting this much money. Here's the budget. Here is how you've said you're going to spend it. Here's your reporting requirement. If you want to make budget changes, you have to do this. Florida law applies. All those sort of standard grant articles are in there.
Okay.
So, and I assume when we got it from y'all that there's one of the things was they had to indicate the financial contact name and the administrative contact name. So these will go out to your administrative contact that was listed on your cover page. And John, should we be now sending these to you instead of to Carla?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Carla's been great at forwarding everything over to me, but I know that she has her hands full with her new workload. So if you could update it to my information, that would be great.
Great, and it's ROUGE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what's your title? I know I have
Assistant Director, Student Success.
Assistant Director, Student Success. Okay, perfect. We will do that. Anything else? Anything y'all can think of from Broward County that you want? Where'd my slide?
No, I think we're good, Paula. We just were saying we have everyone's email because everyone's been very generous in reaching when we reach out to them on getting information. And we'd be happy to host anything down here in Broward County if everyone wants to come this way at some point.
Oh, awesome. Good, thank you. Yeah, because we're looking again at doing maybe some more of those regional workshops like we did last spring, just not 4 and 5 days.
Yes.
But we thought that would be good. So here, I'm just going to throw off these topics, and then if you all want to shoot us an email or anything. So, building a sustainable program and program funding strategies. That was one of the topics that I mentioned. Working with vocational rehabilitation, becoming a vocational rehabilitation vendor. That's another way of looking at recovering some of your costs. If you become a vocational rehabilitation vendor, then they can pay you based on the number of students you have to be do the job placement, or, if that's what you're doing. I mean, we have several of the programs that are doing job placement, and if your students are VR clients, then there's a likely that you could become a vendor to provide those job placement services, and they then would be paying you to do that. Developing your CTP application, your Comprehensive Transition Program application, financial aid ins and outs, credentials, types of credentials, approval for connecting with business and industry to identify what needed credentials are. Evidently, y'all have kind of done that in Broward. Residential issues, students living on campus, support needs, ins and outs of using peer mentors, partnering with K-12, really to stimulate the demand for your programs. And then one sort of important one would be connecting your programs with students' IEPs. So as the students in secondary education are developing their transition-focused IEPs, and they have to identify their post-secondary education and training goals, we want to make sure that they know you all have these programs. So we now have something to fill in the blank with as you think about students' goals. So that was just kind of a brainstorm of topics, and any other thing you want to add to the list, please do. And that's the kind of content that we'll have at our Institute in September for the breakout sessions. So there may be a little bit of overlap there, but we didn't think that would be a problem. Okay?
Yeah, those sound great.
Cool. Okay, well, I fell down and blew out my shoulder a couple of weeks ago, which was really stupid, but I have to have my rotator cuff fixed on Monday. So I'll be out for the whole week. And I hope I'm not checking email, but if you need to do anything, you have our email. It's not on there, but it's fcsua@ucf.edu. And it is available on our website. You can link to it. So if you have any more questions or need something while I'm out, then please reach out to Drew or to Caitlin, and they can get right back with you. So other than that, I'll get this reporting document out to you just a few minutes, and then you're good to go. And thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And again, just call us when you need to. We're happy to set up a Zoom meeting or phone meeting anytime you need. And come down. We'll be down. I promise, Christy.